All right, good morning. The front board is reconvening. We're at the Louisiana Correctional Institute for Women. With the staff at LCIW, please introduce yourself for the record.
Turn the volume up.
Hey, staff. Can y'all hear us?
Sorry, we had to turn our volume up.
Okay, so we asked for the staff to introduce themselves for the
Hold
record.
on one more second. We can't really hear y'all. Is this a TV one?
Can you hear us now? Testing, can you hear us now?
All right.
Testing, can you hear us?
Perfect. Thank you. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, so could we get the staff to introduce themselves, please?
Yes, ma'am. Kristen Thomas, warden.
Carolyn A ARDC manager. I'm Applicant Daddy, ARDC supervisor.
Okay, thank you. And we have before us Ms. Adams. Would you introduce yourself, ma'am? Tell us your name and your DOC number, please.
My name is Carolyn Adams, 514364.
All right, thank you. And with counsel, would you introduce yourself, please?
My name is Jacob Rajman. I'm a student attorney at Tulane.
Good morning. My name is Stanislav Moroz. I'm a supervising attorney and professor at the Tulane Law Clinic's Women's Prison Project.
Okay, and so will Mr. Roshman be presenting at the end before?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Adams, you're here before the pardon board this morning. You're seeking a commutation of your sentence. Let me recognize the folks who have joined us this morning. We have the Parole Project. We have Ms. Brenda Washington, Daniel Dickerson. Here with us in Baton Rouge is Marie Dickerson, Maxine Jones, and Barry Stewart, Gail Smith, Herbert Jordan. There is Reverend James Alexis and Becky Conkar. Is that LCIW? Yes. Let me just read some identifying information, Ms. Adams, and I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Jackson. Your case has been assigned to her. She'll take the lead on the interview. Then we'll hear from the folks who've indicated they'd like to speak. We'll ask for your statement at the end, and then we'll turn it over to your attorneys. Okay? You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Adams, your DOC number is 514364. You're here seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in July 2005 in Lafourche Parish to a life sentence for a second-degree murder conviction. Is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Your answer, Mrs. Jackson, please.
Yes.
Good morning. Good morning, Ms. Adams. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I can tell you're a little nervous today. So just relax, all right?
Yes, ma'am.
Relax. We'll start with some easy things, okay? How old are you?
74.
And how long have you served in this case?
It will be 18 years this July.
So you were in your mid-50s when this crime was, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. 56, I believe.
Well, first, tell us about your life. What were you doing? Who were you as a person? What was your occupation? Tell us something about who you were before this crime occurred.
I was involved in my community. I volunteered at my church.
Were you married?
Excuse me?
Were you married?
Yes, ma'am. I lived in Raceland. I did after-school care at the Catholic school where my son was enrolled. I volunteered at the food bank at the thrift.
Well, we'll get to your volunteer work. We're just trying to figure out who you are. Calm down, relax, okay? All right,
I was a homemaker.
okay.
And
How
then
much education had you had?
high school graduate and some college.
And your primary occupation was what? What had you done most of your life?
My primary occupation was homemaker.
But you did work outside the home?
Outside of the home,
When
uh,
you said you did aftercare, what did that mean?
after school care was taking care of children until their parents came to pick them up from school.
They pay you for that?
Very little, but it was mostly volunteer, but because there was not a lot of pay in that.
And your son was a student at the school?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that why you were volunteering?
Well, when I started volunteering, he had graduated from that school and gone to high school, but I continued to volunteer the after school care program.
How many children do you have?
I have one son.
Now, tell us about this Hopkins. Tell us what happened and how you came to commit this crime.
Could you repeat the question?
Tell me about the crime itself. What happened? How did you come to commit the murder of the victim in this case?
I had spent the day, July 4th, with Charles Armand at his home. And
Were you in an intimate relationship with Mr. Armand?
yes, ma'am.
How long had that relationship lasted?
Maybe 2 years. Or, no,
What happened? You were at his house, and then what happened?
we rode around, went to the park, went to a movie, and then it was time for me to leave and go home. So he said that he would follow me part of the way home. And so he was following me. And at one point, he signaled me that he was going to take the lead. And so I was following him. He turned down this dark road and then turned off the road into an area where it was pitch black. So I turned in, but instead of driving into the area, I maneuvered my car to be heading out and towards the front of the area. So he came to my car and asked me to get out and come to the truck, which he was driving. So I got out and he wanted to have sex, and I said no. And he was very angry because I said no. And it was like the day had been a wasted day or whatever because I said no. And then he started asking me if I had the money that he wanted. And I said no, I wasn't going to give him any money. But very angry and started screaming and yelling at me.
Okay, go ahead.
It was really, really, really black out there. You couldn't see anything. And so when he started yelling, started to walk around the truck, started at the back of the truck. I started to walk around the side, and as I walked, he walked. And he just kept yelling at me and screaming at me, and he thrust his wallet at me and told me that he needed money, he wanted the money, and why wasn't I going to give it to him? And I said, I want to leave. I want to go home. And he kept following me. And then he went to the passenger door of the truck. And I could hear the glove box open with a click. And I knew he had a gun in there, and shot him.
How did you end up with a gun?
I always carried a gun with me. I had gone through this self-defense course with the Lafourche Parish Sheriff's Department because of a rash of crimes against women. So I had gone through that course, and I had a gun, and I always kept it on me when I was traveling by myself.
You say on you, was in your purse? I mean, how did you, where'd you normally keep the gun?
In my purse, on a strap on my person.
And tell me again why you shot him? I'm confused as to why you actually shot him.
Because he was screaming and yelling at me, and he went in the glove box. And I knew he had that gun in there. And it was very dark. It was very scary. And he was very irate and screaming at me.
Somewhere in your application, for all everything that I read, one of the things that happened is that he was threatening to reveal your affair with him to your husband.
Yes,
Yeah.
and yes, ma'am. And that was kind of strange because my husband already knew. And it was very strange that he would say that because my husband already knew, because he would call my house, and my husband already knew. And at that time, my husband was not living, we were not living together.
So what did you do after you shot Mr. Armand? What did you do after you shot Mr. Armand?
I went around the truck and I took the keys because I didn't want him to follow me.
Okay, and then what?
And I left.
Did you see him laying on the ground or in the truck? Where was he?
In the truck.
So I'm a little bit confused, but we're gonna go on. Because you said he was walking around following behind you and reached into the glove box. I'm confused about where he was when you actually shot him.
He was halfway inside of the truck in the glove box. He was halfway inside of the truck. And so,
All right, you do have opposition from the DA, the sheriff's office, as well as the victim's son. However, the victim's sister is not opposed to your release. So tell us, I see that you've not had write-ups in the 18 years of your incarceration. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've gone for a number of programs. You have an associate's degree in Christian ministry. You are a peer minister. You are a hospice facilitator. What do you do as a hospice facilitator?
It's not a hospice facilitator. I do ministry rounds in the infirmary where I visit the sick or people who are unable to be on the compound. And
I see.
also to the people in lockdown. So I do ministry rounds in lockdown and people in the infirmary.
Are you a tutor or a facilitator for these programs?
I am a certified academic tutor with the reentry court program. And I facilitate a grief group.
And what's
every-
that?
It's a group where we meet every Saturday for people who are grieving from death or separation from family, home, or whatever.
And what's the of that program?
It's a support group.
And well, what's life healing choices?
Life's Healing Choices. It's a program where we learn to make the right choices to live the way we should. And I think it was with Rick Warren.
And you did Living in Balance, which is a substance abuse focus
Yes,
program. Why did you do Living in Balance? Did you have a problem with alcohol or drug use?
I did Living in Balance because the women who come into the reentry workforce program have drug and alcohol problems. And so it helped me to help the women, to mentor to them in the program.
So what's your daily job at LCIW?
My daily job is academic tutor to the people in the reentry court. And
GED tutor? That what you tutor? What do you tutor?
I tutor science, social studies, math, language, reading.
Is that for the to enable them to obtain a GED?
Yes, ma'am.
What are other programs of importance are you involved in? That serve or benefit others?
I'm a member of Kairos, and we have weekly prayer and share meetings. But my most, I guess the most prominent thing that I do is every Saturday with the grief group.
How long have you been doing that?
Since 2008.
And why is that important to you to do that?
It's important because so many people come in shattered because of life experiences, and we get together and hold each other. We call it holding each other in a circle, and it's a lot of listening to what people have to say, because a lot of times people just need someone to just hear them. And so it's very important because people share their innermost feelings and what they're feeling. We never try to interfere with that and allow people to express how they're really feeling, and it's sort of healing and therapeutic.
And you receive training to conduct these sessions?
Yes,
Um. For you personally, for your own growth and development, what has been the most important thing that you've done, participated in over the last almost 18 years? That focused on you and how you came to be in this situation. What's been most helpful for you personally?
the most helpful thing for me has been a grief group. Also, Barrows, the prayer chair. And but the most important thing to me has been the grief group, and then also interacting with the reentry court program because of the problems that the people have. A lot of it,
How has that helped you personally? I understand how it helped others, but how has those things helped you personally?
I am currently taking a course. It's called Victim Impact, Listen and Learn. That's just begun here within the last month. That is helping me tremendously because it shows me how victims are affected by the crimes. It takes self out of the equation completely, and the focus is on victims and the sorrow they go through, whatever, and that's having a great effect on me. Also, the pre-release program that I am currently attending also shows a lot about.
Did you know the victim's son? Had you met him prior to his dad's death?
His son. I knew several sons.
How many children did Mr. Armand have?
6, I believe 6. I knew the youngest, I knew Devontae, it's the youngest. I knew Jasmine, his only daughter. I knew of Eddie Charles. I knew the baby, called him Little Charles. I knew his oldest son, I think his name is Trevion, similar to that. And there was one named Jared.
I think the loss of father has impacted him.
She said,
How does the loss of their father impacted them? Like, how has it affected them with the loss of their father? The children, how has it affected the children?
she's asking me.
Mhm.
I'm sure it's caused them a lot of anger, a lot of sadness, a lot of grief, a lot of hatred, a lot of confusion. A lot of missed moments.
Warren, what can you tell us about Ms. Adams?
I know she's extremely nervous, but like you had mentioned, it's quite an accomplishment not to have received any disciplinary write-ups since she has been here. She is one of our lead mentors in the reentry class, and she's just an individual here who is never never turns away from helping somebody. She's always willing to help somebody who is needing it, like she said, making rounds in the segregation areas or in our infirmary area. She has such a kind heart to the other ladies that are incarcerated here. So I can't say enough about how much she has helped the community here.
Thank you. Ms. Adams, I see that you have lots of letters from, of support from the Holy Cross Sisters, from your siblings, your son, your nieces and nephews, the LCIW chaplain, and in particularly, and Ms. Griffin, who was a former inmate and someone that you mentored, all have very positive things to say about you. If you were successful today, Ms. Adams, tell us about your transition plan.
If successful today, I will be motivated to work.
I need specifics. Where would you work?
Work, volunteer.
Where would you live?
I will be going to the Parole project if released. And
And then after that,
after that, I would like to volunteer at,
listen to me. Are you nervous? Don't live at the parole project forever. So after the parole project, what are your plans to support yourself and keep a roof over your head?
I plan to live with my sister Maxine in Arkansas.
In Arkansas, okay.
And work with her daughter, who's my niece.
Doing what?
She does editing and manuscripts and whatever. She
And what
said,
would
hire me.
the job be?
Job would be basically editing manuscripts, as far as I know.
All right, well, thank you, Ms. Adams. Ms. O'Shea, that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. We'll hear from those who are in support, who are here with us this morning. Could we hear from Ms. Marie Dickerson, sister-in-law? No, not speaking. Maxine Jones.
Honorable members of the board, my name is Maxine Jones, and I'm here to speak on behalf of my sister Carolyn A Adams. As I thought about what was pertinent for me regarding my sister, I found my thoughts going back to our childhood. We had so many things in common: playing in the band, sharing licorice candy, reading each other's books, cooking, and traveling, just to name a few. I have seen her treat my children with love and kindness. When they visited her at the prison, she made them feel special, asking about the things they were involved in. She spent time talking to the grandkids and playing make-up games with them. I have seen my sister grow in wisdom and humility during her incarceration. During our visits, she listened to what I had to say, which usually included updates on our siblings and other family members. She sent messages of encouragement back to them through me to always do and be their best, pursuing excellence in every situation. If it is worth doing, it is worth doing right. We talked about the coursework she was taking for a degree. We celebrated missed birthdays, purchasing gooey cake and a solar juice from the facility. My husband and I visited Carol several times over the years. After his passing, she called and emailed me several times to encourage me to get out of the house and not to be alone. She shared my grief. My first visit without him was special as we laughed and we reminisced about our times together. Carol has a heart for the women she mentors in the reentry program. She wants to see them survive and strive and thrive during incarceration. She knows that reentry is a challenging process, one that requires hard work and a community of family support. Carol is ready to do the work necessary to be successful and has a lot of support in our family. After completing the Louisiana Parole Project program, my home is open to her. She has my full support and the full support of other family members that are watching this hearing on YouTube today, including her sisters, her nieces, her nephew, and her son. Carol is a kind-hearted, generous, caring, trustworthy, and loving person. Her strength amazes me. Over the years, my children and grandchildren have prayed for her. I want them to experience in person the joy and laughter she brings to any situation, to learn from her, to cook with her, to walk and talk with her, to hug and touch. That is what life is about, fulfilling our God-given purpose to be a blessing to others. I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak with you. Blessings.
Thank you. Mr. Barry Stewart. Well, okay, we'll hear from the Parole Project. Mr. Myers.
Yes, good morning. Kerry Myers with Louisiana Parole Project. To let you know, we fully support Ms. Adams in her request for clemency. What was not said so far in all her accomplishments, she is a graduate of the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. She is currently enrolled in the Tulane college program. We will provide her all the services needed for her transition. That includes going through being evaluated by a social worker. That includes financial management. That includes getting connected to all her medical and her other benefits. She would be eligible for SSI or Social Security. We'll check into that. She would definitely, at her age, be eligible for SSI, which would follow her anywhere. So she would have some income. We are also committed to keeping her as long as needed while she's working on her ICOTS until she's ready to make that transition to Arkansas. We just ask this board to consider that this entire case is just tragic, and consider Ms. Adams' contributions, her age, her record, and grant her relief today.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to hear from the victim's cousin, Giovannia Dumas.
Yes.
Okay, we'd like to hear from you.
Yeah. So my vote is no today. She took his life selfishly without regard for the long-term consequences of those actions. And as a result of her crime, my family has endured the effects of that loss. She took a "if I can't have him, no one else can" approach. And because of this, we won't ever get to see him again. This was no accident. He was no threat to her at any time. There was an intent to take his life, and she has not shown any remorse. And as a result of her actions, his sons and daughter are fatherless. His grandchildren, he'll never get to know, and we'll never ever see him again. My family are dealing with the long-term effects of his absence. The grief is never ending, and it's been our family's greatest trauma. It is my belief as a psychologist, she is not ready. She has not acknowledged her actions or behaviors. There's no acceptance of her behavior to this crime. And she's only grieving her losses, not what we've lost as a victim of this crime. And her being free will pose a psychological threat to our family and his offspring if she's released. So no, she is not ready.
Great, thank you, ma'am. We appreciate your input. Ms. Adams, is there a statement you'd like to make before we turn it over to your attorney?
I would like to say there are no words that I can humanly summon to express the depth of my sorrow for what happened, for what I did. There are no words to express those feelings, except I'm sorry. And that doesn't really cover a lot, but it's the only words that I know. I'm sorry. Doesn't take away the sting or anything, but those are the only words that I know. Say, I'm sorry.
Ma'am, thank you. Mr. Roshman?
Excuse me, Board Member Renata, we had Ms. Donna Diaz who was going to make a statement, and I'm sorry, I don't know if we had her name put down at the beginning. Would it be possible for her to make a statement in support before we move to Mr. Roshman?
Sure. Yes. Briefly.
Thank you.
I'm Donna Diaz. I began volunteering at LCIW in 2008 and assisted with the grief group. The grief group is a circle process where inmates could speak about harm caused to them, harm they had caused to others, or pain and difficulties they had had in life and in incarceration. I met Carolyn Adams on the first day I was there. She was there every Saturday. In a short time, I took over the group facilitation and began to use the community building process developed by M. Scott Peck, well-known author and psychiatrist. Simple guidelines are used that help members of the group quietly listen when someone is speaking, avoid advising, preaching, teaching, or judging. Maintaining confidentiality is a major factor in the process. Carolyn quickly saw the value of this process. I mentored her on the process and eventually asked her to assist me. We did this work together for about 10 years, every Saturday. She mastered the process and could facilitate the group in my absence. I trusted her ability to lead the group. After the 2016 flood, when the inmates were moved to other locations, Carolyn spoke to the prison chaplain about the importance of continuing the grief group, even though volunteers like myself weren't able to enter the prison for a time. They agreed, and she led the group in my absence. This also happened in the period of the pandemic and she continued without me. I was amazed at how conscientious she was and is about every task she is given. And as the years went on, she was given more and more responsibilities by the prison staff. At the same time, Carolyn was determined to further her education, receiving associate's and bachelor's degrees that required rigorous time-consuming assignments and exams. She was always at the top of her class. She kept me updated on her progress with pride and joy. She met me often with a big smile saying, "Guess what I made on my paper or my exam?" Carolyn is a great resource and mentor for many inmates, especially the new ones. She encourages them to join the grief group or other activities to help them stay away from possible bad influences. Many of them have told me how helpful she's been to them. I believe her leadership is invaluable for many inmates and for the prison staff. She is soft-spoken, kind, caring, and has a deep devotion to God and her faith.
Ms. Diaz, excuse me, Ms. Diaz, I'm sorry. We have a 3-minute rule, so could you wrap it up for us, please?
Yes, I have one sentence.
Okay.
If Carolyn Adams is able to be released, I believe she will be a valuable asset to her community, church, and society. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Mr. Ross.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. My name is Jacob Roshman, and I'm a student attorney with the Tulane Law School Women's Prison Project. I'd like to start by acknowledging the pain that Ms. Adams has caused the Armont family. She recognizes, and she is nervous today, but that her actions devastated the family. That there's absolutely nothing she can do or say to change that. She spent the last 17 years of her life processing the consequences of these actions. In turn, she's worked hard to be a positive presence to the people in her community, and her family members. Since coming to prison, Ms. Adams has dedicated herself to her education, to the education of the women around her, to enhancing Catholic life at LCIW, and supporting other women during times of hardship by facilitating a grief group and organizing memorial services. She's 74 years old, has a perfect disciplinary record, and outside of this offense has no criminal record, not even a traffic ticket. Ms. Adams' commitment to growth is evident from her educational accomplishments. She graduated at the top of her class from the New Orleans Baptist Seminary and is currently a straight A student at Tulane University's College and Prison program, with an invitation to continue the program in the free world if released. Her professor, Dr. Burns, wrote in a letter of support that Ms. Adams' essay was, quote, the strongest and most memorable essay that she has ever received from either an LCIW or a traditional student. Her paper focused on the experience of being an elder in the prison and mentoring the women she serves. Through Ms. Adams' dedication to Catholic life, she's helped provide spiritual guidance and support to women grappling with remorse, guilt, trauma, and loss. She's a peer minister, goes to multiple Bible studies each week, and is a committed member of Kairos Prison Ministry. Chaplain Sharkey wrote that during the 2016 flood and during the COVID pandemic, when volunteers were not allowed in the prison, that Ms. Adams was, quote, the primary instrument of the Lord to keep Catholic faith alive at LCIW. Ms. Adams' support for other incarcerated women is evident from her work in facilitating the grief group and organizing memorial services for women who have passed in prison. You've already heard from Ms. Diaz about Ms. Adams' leadership role in the grief group, but Ms. Adams also cares deeply about bringing dignity to women who die behind prison walls by organizing their memorial services. In fact, last year, for New Orleans native, Ms. Adams was granted permission to organize a second line, got all the women together, and they waved tissues around and marched and to celebrate her life. If given another chance, Ms. Adams is uniquely equipped to reenter society due to her work as a mentor and a GED tutor for the women in the reentry court program. She's trusted by the prison to help other women reenter back into society because of her patience and intelligence. And she has gained a unique insight into the reentry process that would serve her well if released. Ms. Adams would also have the support of the Parole Project and her loving family. Even during incarceration, Ms. Adams has provided support for her family. She consoled her sister when her husband died, and she encouraged her son, a veteran who returned home from Iraq struggling with PTSD. Ms. Adams' family has felt the love she has shown them throughout her life and will be there for her if released. Just quickly, I'd like to address a couple concerns that the board had noted, that Mr. Armont was found on the passenger seat with the door open, and the police have found the glove box open with the gun in the glove box still there. And at the time of their relationship with Mr. Armont, Ms. Adams' husband did testify at trial that he was aware of the relationship, and so that Mr. Armont's threats there. And that's it. Over the past 17 years and into her mid-70s, Ms. Adams has grown. She's grown in her education. She's grown to more fully understand the consequences of her actions. And she's grown by helping those at LCIW who need her, all without ever getting a single write-up. She's a straight A college student, reentry court mentor, and has kept both the grief group and the Catholic community alive at LCIW during difficult times. Because of Ms. Adams' lack of criminal record besides this offense, her demonstrated rehabilitation, her perfect disciplinary record, and her age, we respectfully ask that the board recommend Ms. Adams a commutation of her sentence to credit for time served. Thank you again for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Well done. I think we are prepared to vote. Mr. Jackson will be voting first.
Ms. Adams. You've accomplished a lot during your period of incarceration. And obviously that doesn't matter much to the Armand family. Their grief is very real. I did know that one of Mr. Armand's sisters were not opposed. So I know that healing and forgiveness is possible. She chosen as the option. But looking at your fact that you lived 56 years of your life as a law-abiding citizen, you had this one terrible act, and I don't diminish it at all. And then over the last almost 18 years, you again lived an exemplary life within the institution. You have no write-ups. You've been numerous programs, but more importantly, you have worked to help other inmates cope with their life situation. A positive remark, of good sport. So my vote today would be to grant a commutation of sentence 45 years with a disability.
Thank you, Mr. Gresham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning, Ms. Adams. How are you? Ms. Adams, it's time for you to relax. Sit back and just relax, okay? Ms. Adams, as a board member for the last 7.5 years, I have guidelines. And I stick by those guidelines 99 and 9/10% of the time. But Ms. Adams, you're truly an exception to the guidelines that I go by. As Ms. Jackson said, you were 56 years old when you committed this crime. This is the only criminal act in your lifetime. I see an overwhelming evidence of your rehabilitation. You're 74 years old, going on 75. You've completed excellent good time programs. You've made tremendous educational advancements, and you have supplied community service to the fellow offenders and facility. We have a wonderful transition plan with the Louisiana Parole Project and then to Bentonville, Arkansas. I will vote with Judge Jackson, and I'll overlook my guidelines saying that a person who's convicted of manslaughter or murder must at least serve 20 years of incarceration. I will overlook the victim opposition in this case because you have displayed a overwhelming evidence of rehabilitation. You're not a danger to society. I think maybe you will be a positive influence on society if and when you release. So my vote is the same. To commute to 45 years with immediate parole eligibility. Good luck.
Mr. Gresham, Mr. Mirabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to thank the participants here today, those both in support as well as opposition. We certainly have heard what you said. Mr. Rossman, I want to thank you for an excellent presentation. Very good job. Ms. Adams, I agree with everything that Judge Jackson said, as well as Mr. Roche. My vote likewise would be to commute your sentence 45 years with parole. Good luck to you.
Mr. Freeman?
You've done a wonderful job in prison. You've done some great things, but I can't get over you only serving 18 years. I'm sorry, a man's life was taken. I question the story of how he died. I really do. Yeah, the glove box was open, but there was a lot of holes in that story. My vote's to deny.
Ms. Adams, I am impressed with your record, the service that you provide to others and have done. My vote today would be also to commute your sentence to 45 years with immediate parole. So you received one vote that was unfavorable, but you've received 4 votes that are favorable. So on your behalf, ma'am, we'll make a recommendation that your sentence be commuted to 45 years. Good luck.
Hold on one second, Bill.
At LCIW, it's 10:32.
Thank you. Have a good day.
I think that's the first time that Mr. Freeman has voted against the other board members, so to speak, without having to vote first. And that kind of surprised me. Now, what we'll do is we'll go over the transcripts. Let's unpack that, as I say. Because I agree with what Mr. Freeman said. I was surprised at how easy the board went on her. Reading the transcript, reading the court records, listening to her interview, which frankly, I didn't find impressive. To me, it really seemed like a classic fake cry show. Like, she wasn't even good at it. She would go into this at the beginning. She kept going to this where she would fake emotion. It seemed to me like it was faking emotion. And then she would just snap out of it when they would ask a question, like she forgot that she was supposed to be crying. And that just kept happening. And for me, it's just gave me really bad vibes. I thought it was she was unlikable and didn't give me the sense that she was speaking the truth. You know, when they said, can you give an example of what it was like that for the children? She used a lot of big words, missed moments, sadness, anger, confusion. But it's like, is that how you would describe it? Wouldn't you just describe it that you turned their kids' lives upside down? You took their father from them? Like, show some emotion that you actually understand what it is that you did. And then normally the board takes into account that she was found guilty by a jury for second degree murder. And here she is, to her credit, saying what looks to be the same story that she gave in the court, but which the jury didn't buy. In some ways, I suppose, could you argue that, well, let's jump back in time to when this all happened. I'm gonna So basically, July 5th of 2005, at around 2:20 in the morning, Mr. Millard, who was a truck driver for the propane and gas company, so he was driving to a remote area off of Louisiana Highway 307. And he was going there to collect a load of oil. You know, he's a truck driver. It's early in the morning. It's kind of dangerous, I hope. You know, he's quiet, he's alone. And there was no lighting on the road, so it's really dark. He arrived to where the tanks were at the end of the road, and that's when he saw this green pickup truck. And he's like, what is this green pickup truck doing there all out in the open? So, you know, he wasn't sure if someone's inside. He's a little nervous, so he honked his horn. Nothing happened. He honked his horn again. Nothing happened. So he decided to approach the vehicle. So if you can picture this, it's like 3 in the morning. He's alone in this deserted field. There's an abandoned car. He has a flashlight, which is, gosh, I don't know. Like, this is like the beginning of how a scary movie starts, right? And that's when he saw the lifeless body of a black male who was identified as our victim. Now, he was hanging from the open passenger side door. So it's the passenger side door to a pickup truck. He's hanging. The upper body was slumped over the seat. The handgun was observed in the glove compartment near the body. So he tried to call the police, but he couldn't because he had no cell phone reception. I hope he had a weapon. Man, can you imagine? I wouldn't go. I would run, but he braved it with the flashlight. So he immediately left. He went to the highway. He got in touch with the police. The police were dispatched, and when they looked at the body, they said that they saw a significant wound at the back of his head. There was no respiratory response. They said he was deceased. The autopsy revealed that he had been shot 4 times. There were 3 bullet entrance wounds in the right lower back, left upper back, 6 inches from the top of the head, and a graze at the top of the head. Considering that all the wounds were in the back of the victim's body, forensic pathologist said that the victim was shot from behind. Well, yeah, you need a forensic pathologist to tell you that. There were no eyewitnesses to the murder. The police investigation led to the defendant's the development of the defendant, who is the victim's ex-girlfriend and the prime suspect. According to the victim's father, the defendant and the victim had spent the entire July 4th holiday together. And it's in the articles I can share later, but they went to like the movies and they barbecued. It was like a whole romantic thing. They went to see fireworks. Now, the defendant initially denied any involvement, but then she took an audio tape statement, which I should do Freedom of Information Act and get this right and make like a proper hearing here. So she admitted that she had been in the victim's presence, but denied knowing that the body. So she lied. Okay. So she kills him. She lies to the police. Then in the second audio tape statement, however, she admits to shooting the victim in the desolated area, claiming that she did it to protect herself. Now, do people kill and then lie to police? It happens, even if she wanted to protect herself, but it's a red strike against her. She lied to police the first time. She didn't go to the police after she killed him, after she shot him in the back 4 times. And by the way, she emptied the gun 5 times, only hit him 4 times. Then, so they took the defendant to the crime scene. She reenacted on video, which they played the video at her trial. The defendant told the investigator detectives that she left the area. She discarded the remaining bullets. Oh, so she had remaining bullets. Hid the gun in the victim. So she hid her gun and the victim's keys in her attic. Okay, so she kills him, shoots him 4 times in the back, leaves, hides his keys and his wallet and the gun in her attic, lies to the police. And then, Okay, to contradict the theory, the defendant intentionally shot the victim after he threatened to expose. So the prosecutor said that she only shot him after he threatened to expose the relationship because they were having an affair. Now, what her attorney said at the end was, oh, he knew about it. He testified that he knew about it. So that couldn't have been an effective motive. At least that's what they're saying today at the parole hearing. That doesn't mean that actually happened. Remember, a jury did convict her. And what is the parole board saying? Are they saying that, you know what, we think that it could have been? Because, I mean, either she's lying to the board now, which they just don't accept. Normally. But in this case, it's like they're saying, no, maybe she wasn't lying. Let's see this news article here. All these wonderful ads. They'll probably demonetize this, but whatever. Woman told police she killed lover in self-defense. So here it is again. She killed him in self-defense. She was afraid that he was going for the gun. Now, we do know the facts from what we'd read prior, that he was found slumped over, the glove compartment was open, there was a gun in there. But she kills him being afraid, shoots him in the back. And then she did, in the court, she did say things to really bring down his reputation. She said that he was demanding money. I was following him. We parked near some bank batteries. He was talking about having to, this, to go home. It was dark. The conversation turned to money. He wanted $1,300 from her and brandished his empty wallet, demanding she fill it. So that's what she said. And he started changing moods, just acting different. He started saying he still wanted to have sex, and then he raised his voice, put the tailgate down to the truck, said I wanted to leave, but I didn't like it. I wanted to leave. Shouting threats ranging from curses to promises to tell her husband where she'd been. Armand walked to the passenger side of the truck where she heard the glove compartment open. Knowing that he was moodier than normal preceding days, she reached into her purse, pulled out her small handgun, and fired. I don't buy it. Remember, there's no testimony here of previous abuse. There's no testimony that he had a criminal record, that he had done anything dangerous. She just makes the assumption that he's getting a gun. So she decides just to unload on him and shoot him in the back. She had her own car there. I don't buy it. It's and then she lied. She lied to the police. She lied. The couple's 20 years age gap was no consequence, and he was older. He was 20 years older. I'll put these links in the description. She was eventually, here's the next article. So she got life in prison, which, as we know, it wasn't. It was just, 17 years, which, again, normally they say in these cases you have to serve 25 years. But they're taking into account that she was 56 when it happened. She had no record, but still, we have seen people in here with no records. We've seen it so many times. I agree with the victim that spoke. I thought she spoke well. She said, you know, how it will have psychological effect on them if she's released. Why is Mr. O'Shea just like throwing that aside and saying, yeah? Is it because it was a cousin that spoke? Now, it's important to note that the victims did not speak at the trial before sentencing. So the idea that they wouldn't speak at this hearing is also not exactly a surprise. But you know, the whole idea of what I thought was the fake crying and the acting, and the idea that she still shows up and states that she was in fear for her life, he was going to get a gun, so she shoots him in the back, and she says that in her own parole hearing. It doesn't seem to take accountability. I'm surprised that they let her out. It's then you might argue and say, well, no, this was her truth, and she said it at the time that it happened in court, and now that must be the truth, and give her credit for it. But if you're not, you know, I guess that would, if you believe her that she was actually in fear for her life and that was the only reason she did it, then you could probably feel good about her getting out. But if you feel that she did it because out of another means, she was angry or she was afraid that the affair would be exposed, because I'm not certain what the attorney said is true. Then I would think her being let out is you know, this early. It could have been 25 years, but that's just me. I you know, I love to hear your thoughts on this. Again, if you think she was being honest, then I do get it, but she just didn't give me that energy. I'd love to hear your thoughts. With that, I'll let you go. Oh, please do like and subscribe. It really helps the algorithm, and only a tiny percentage actually do like it. And I was told, remind you, because otherwise we forget. So with that,